After returning to her dormitory, Hajin then placed the evangel seed on the cloth containing Rachel's blood. Hajin chuckled when he saw the seed immediately absorbing Rachel's blood as soon as it touched it. He got evangel seed in Mount Gari. If you feed this seed with human blood, then evangel the witch will be born. Since this is the blood of a prominent person like Rachel, he was sure that this would not become evil once born. He then told the seed to quickly grow and help him, but while he was playing with the seed, he was then surprised when he saw his stigma suddenly lit up. He could only break out in a cold sweat seeing that. He really didn't expect his second stigma to be awakening now. A cry of pain was then heard from the building. The next day, the sun was shining very brightly. Hajin's wrist where the stigma was now seen being wrapped in bandages. He felt bad mood because of the events that suddenly happened to him last night. Realizing his mood, Park Soo-hyuk then asked, "What's wrong, Hajin?" He looked very sluggish. Hajin only said that he was just a little tired. He then asked, "So how is business?" Park Soo-hyuk replied. His HUV made work easier and he finally had customers now. It also felt safer than when he used to go to the field with empty hands. With a tone of gratitude and thanks, Park Soo-hyuk then said that it was all his blessing. Hajin was a little embarrassed to hear that. He then decided to change the topic of discussion. After arriving at the place they were going to, Hajin was then confused why there were so many people at the entrance. He wondered if they were from a guild, while the people who were there now were amazed. Because the person in front of them at this time was a member of the Essence of the Straight Guild, that person turned out to be Yona. Hajin was then surprised when he saw her. He wondered if she was here to review a field with her guild members. Yona at this time also saw him when he lowered his car glass. She was also surprised when he saw him here. She then approached him, and asked, what business did he have in this field? Hajin was quite surprised to see her take the initiative to approach him and not ignore him as usual. He then replied, to find money. Hearing that, Yona then asked, was he alone? Hajin replied no, he was with his agent, Park Soo-hyuk. Park Soo-hyuk was really surprised to see him recognize someone from the Essence of the Straight. Hearing that, Yona understood. For some reason Park Soo-hyuk's body was trembling a little when Yona looked at him. If you think about it, Yona and Park Soo-hyuk are really a ridiculous combination. Originally, Park Soo-hyuk was supposed to be the agent of Kim Soho. When Yona found out that Soho made a contract with Soo-hyuk, she immediately invested a lot of money in SH. The results were so amazingly successful that Yona and Soo-hyuk became very rich from the investment, but that's what happened in the original novel. Now, this is the problem, whether SH agency without Kim Soho deserves Yona's investment or not. In the worst case scenario, he might hinder Park Soo-hyuk's development. The aura Yona exudes is so scary in Park Soo-hyuk's eyes right now. After knowing the situation, Yona then opened the car door, then got in and sat next to him just like that. She said, if he was here for hunting, she wanted to come. She then asked him, was it okay? Hajin could only be stunned to hear that. After that, they then continued their journey. The atmosphere in the car suddenly became a little awkward after Yona's arrival. Hajin was confused about what Yona was thinking. Yona then suddenly called her and asked, had he thought about his future? Hajin was really confused to hear her suddenly ask that. Yona said that she was asking what he would do after graduation. Hearing that, Hajin said that it was still very far away. Why should he already think about it? Hearing that, Yona then said, of course he already had to think about it. The midterm exams were over and by the time he got to 3rd grade, he wouldn't even be in cube much because of practice. Hajin knew that 3rd grade was the time where you would be busy as an apprentice hero. If he didn't have a plan, Yona asked, how about he joins Essence of the Straight? It seemed like the purpose of Yona asking that was to recruit him. Yona explained, currently, they continued to be the 2nd-ranked guild after Creator's Sacred Grace. But when she became the guild master, she was determined that she would make Essence of the Straight the best guild in the country. Yona said that she could promise a lot of favors, ranging from high-rank items to well-known agencies. Park Soo-hyuk, who had only been listening, was then surprised and worried to hear that. Yona then asked him, isn't this a lucrative offer for someone who is still a cadet? Hearing that, Hajin instead said that it was illegal to recruit cadets this early. She could be fined $500,000. Yona irritably said that she could easily pay that, whatever it was. Yona asked him to think about it first, but the car they were traveling in suddenly stopped. Suddenly, it made Yona hit the car seat in front of her. Yona then looked angrily at Park Soo-hyuk. Why did he suddenly stop? Park Soo-hyuk said. They had arrived at the monster point. Yona was confused to hear that. How could an ordinary agent like him know the monster point? Park Soo-hyuk explained. The end of April is the time for monsters in the area to start raging. There are many monsters that are pushed into this area. There are several locations like this. But other locations are famous, so it's crowded there. He also chose this area because, considering Hajin is a sharpshooter, all this information he has confirmed first. So they can trust him. Seeing the shock on Yona's face, Hajin then asked her, isn't his agent very good? He then told Park Soo-hyuk that he would go hunting first. Park Soo-hyuk understood. He asked him to be careful. He then asked Yona, what about her? Yona said that her guild members would arrive soon, and she then just left from there, but he was then surprised and confused when Yona suddenly knocked on his car window. Yona asked, could she ask for his business card? Time is ticking. It's been 10 days since the midterm exam. The suspended classes began to resume and the cadets returned to the cube after their vacation period ended. When they just entered the school, they immediately went to the midterm written exam scoreboard to find out what rank they were in. On the scoreboard, Hajin's name was clearly displayed on the first rank with Rachel again being the second rank. Hajin was not surprised at all. He considered it normal when he obtained the first position in the midterm written test. Rachel herself could only feel gloomy when looking at the scoreboard. After he gave Kim Horak a lesson during the practical test, the people who were rounding her began to calm down. This was the calmest moment for him after he entered the cube, but his guess seemed to be wrong, because someone suddenly hit him right in front of him. It made the wall in front of him crack. That person was Nayeon. She looked very annoyed, while showing the assessment report that she thought came from him. She then asked, you wrote this assessment report right? Hajin could only be confused by that. The cadets who saw it were shocked when they saw it. They wondered if there was a fight. Nayeon told him not to think about denying it. This handwriting matched him's. Hearing that, Hajin then said that he wrote it to help her. Hearing that, Nayeon annoyedly asked, who told him to? And he also wrote that she had no sensitivity as a marksman. Who was he to dare to judge her like that? Did he think he was already good because he was good at lessons? She then invited him to bet. How about she taught him personally how difficult it was to use the bow? But Nayeon was then surprised to hear Hajin agree to the bet so easily. But Hajin said, if she lost she would have to give up using the bow. Nayeon was stunned to hear that. She then became very upset and angry with him. He really didn't give up telling her to change her weapon. Hajin then said that he would also use a bow instead of a gun, but could she give him time to do some special training first? Hearing that, Nayeon dismissively asked, would that be useful? She didn't care about that at all, and she then left there after venting her emotions. Seeing that, Hajin thought, her sharpshooter master talent proficiency is currently at grade 7, if he can improve it to grade 6 in the remaining time, then this bet will be in his favor. Moreover, he also has Hisbluck stat. Hajin knows Nayeon doesn't want to accept the fact. She mistakenly thought that she would be talented in using a bow just like when she uses a sword. Praise and encouragement alone will not solve anything, she must become stronger. In the Grace Hall of room 303, seeing them all gathered, the president of the travel club, Oh Han-hyun, then greeted them all. He was grateful that they could reunite safely here after the dizzying midterm exam. There was also Hajin. He was now just listening to the explanation of the club president quietly while thinking. The academic club and hunting club were temporarily suspended due to the activities of the Jinn. The events that happened in the cube followed the same progression as in the original novel, and the remaining events were, after explaining at length, Han-hyun then said, that's why the club destination this time is France. The next episode is the Paris Tycoon murder. This episode starts with a death threat from a group of assassins. Your life will be taken at midnight between Saturday and Sunday. The recipient is the Paris Tycoon, Bethel. Bethel is a gentleman who lives a simple life in his house in the suburbs of Paris, but it's actually just a front. His real name is Berbet. And he's been a conman since birth, a scum among scum who accumulated wealth by deceiving many people. He managed to escape arrest by using various tricks until now. But the footsteps of darkness that targeted him were really tough, because he was a fugitive. He couldn't ask the police for help, and he didn't have much time to find a very strong guard that could face them. Facing that, Bethel was trembling with fear, but even in such a difficult position, he could still come up with brilliant ideas. One day, Bethel came up with a genius plan after meeting a cube cadet who was on a private vacation to Paris. At that time he happened to be in the same hotel as Han Hyun. While there, he then overheard a conversation between him and a man. The man praised Han Hyun for succeeding in becoming the president of the travel club in Cube. It was very extraordinary. Han Hyun was a little embarrassed to hear his praise. He then said that his club was planning to make Paris their next destination, but he had difficulty finding a good lodging for the cadets. Bethel, who heard that, then said to him, "How about staying at his mansion?" He and all his fellow cadets. That was the story. He planned to use cadets as guards for his mansion, and while Hajin was thinking about it, he was then surprised when he got a message from his notebook. The message did not come from the co-author, but came from Violet Banquet. The person contacted him through the truth agency he founded. The person wanted to ask for his help. Reading that, Hajin realized that he had gotten his first client. The person asked him to help find an imposter who ran away after cheating his family. He had sent the details of the man he had to find. After reading the details of the person in question, Hajin was then surprised. Somewhere in an abandoned building, there was a group of mysterious people who were watching a replay of Hajin's match against Kim Horak. Seeing the match, that it surprised him. "So this is the power of anti-magic," another member also said. "The quality of this year's Cube first-year cadet is very high. He also looks quite useful." Hearing that, her colleague beside her said that she didn't really care. They all turned out to be members of the Chameleon Troupe. She then told her doubts to the boss. Since when did they, the Chameleon Troupe, started to be an analysis group to bring in newbies like him? Hearing that, her colleague said that he felt that he had potential, and even more. He liked it because he didn't have a family or a lover. Hearing that, she then asked, "What does that have to do with this?" Her colleague explained, it would be easy for someone to fall into material temptation when he didn't have anyone around him. They wouldn't be able to give him honor, but they could give him as much money as he wanted. After hearing their debate, one of the male members said, their first priority was to find the traitor and kill him. If his talent could help them, then they should recruit him, but his partner seemed to disagree when she heard that. She then said, "Let's say that they had already recruited him, the remaining place was just black. Would they give that position to that rookie?" That color represented the strongest person in the Chameleon Troupe. It was also the color of the person who had betrayed the boss before. Hearing their debate, Jung Yang then said he would take black then. They could just give him husk color, but they immediately rejected his proposal. They also considered themselves stronger than him. Jung Yang then got annoyed. Hearing that, he then asked, "Then how else?" Hearing that, Drun said, "The answer is with a majority vote." He then asked the boss's opinion about it. The boss was silent for a moment. She then said to them, "For those who agree to recruit Kim Hajin into the Chameleon Troupe, then raise your hands." Hearing that, the members who agreed then raised their hands, while those who disagreed were silent. Jung Yang was one of them. 8 members agreed, while 2 did not. Drun then asked, "So is Kim Hajin's recruitment approved?" The members who disagreed were then upset to see that. After that, the boss then gave something to one of the members named Jane. It was an invitation to a VVIP party in Paris. Hearing that, he then realized that it was the location of her mission this time. She then confidently said, "For her, Jane, the yellow of the Chameleon Troupe, stealing a ring is a simple matter." Time continued to roll, and they finally arrived at the D-Day. The travel club members gathered early in the morning. Nayun even looked sleepy. After making sure all the members were present, Han Hyun then said, "Now they will draw the group before entering the portal." Hearing that, Hajin couldn't help but think, he had never gone to Europe in the previous world. But in this world the distance is only 10 seconds. He wonders if this is a good thing or a bad thing. The first to draw is Yona. Based on the original novel, Yona and Suho will be in the same group. For the rest, Hajin decided to see what happens first. After the group division is complete, they then enter the portal and head to Paris. The weather there at this time was very sunny. The residents there were also seen enjoying the sunshine leisurely. But what Hajin did not expect was, he was in a group with Nayun. Nayun was really unhappy when she was in the same group with him. She blamed her bad luck. Hearing that, Hajin asked, why did she complain when she herself took the draw? Nayun then annoyed told him to shut up. The residents then finally realized their arrival. They wondered if they were cube cadets. They felt they were very cool. Hajin then heard someone calling them. It turned out to be Hanhyun's girlfriend. They looked very happy when they finally met again. They then affectionately asked each other's news. They looked very intimate. Seeing that, they then annoyedly wondered, did he come here to meet his girlfriend? Han Hyun then introduced his girlfriend to them. Her name was Natasha. She was also a team doctor on this visit. Natasha then greeted and introduced herself to all of them. She hoped they all enjoyed their visit in Paris. They were then surprised when they heard that. They were confused how Han Hyun could make her his girlfriend. After making out with his girlfriend, Han Hyun then told them that they were free to walk around as they liked. There was a dinner party being prepared, so he asked them to gather here at 7 later. They understood. Nayeon then asked Hajin where he was going. Hajin answered, first of all, he wanted to eat. He also asked, did she seriously want to see the view with him? Nayeon was confused to hear that. The group had been determined. What did he want her to do? Did he want her to leave him alone? Hearing that, Hajin said that was not what he meant. He just thought that she was much different from someone. Then, Hajin then asked her to follow him. Nayeon was then surprised and confused to hear that. She asked, did he know this area? Hearing that, Hajin asked her back, did she have a smartwatch just to show off? Of course he found out first before coming here. Nayeon was a little embarrassed to hear that. Hajin then told her to just follow him. Nayeon then said, just so he knows, she doesn't eat random food. Hajin said that he knew that. Nayeon was annoyed when she heard his pretentious tone. Hajin then took Nayeon to a restaurant. When they arrived there, Hajin then ordered a reservation on his behalf. Nayeon then confusedly asked, how could he reserve a place like this? Hajin just said that it was a secret. Hajin used the Book of Truth, but he certainly wouldn't tell her about it. Hajin then gave the menu list that the waiter gave him. Nayeon understood, and she then looked at the menu list. Seeing that, Hajin was sure Nayeon would definitely order something delicious. Because she came from a rich family, he also felt this place was very comfortable, but when he was looking around, he suddenly saw the silhouette of someone he might know. He was surprised to see that. He then stood up while looking in that direction. Nayeon was then confused at his attitude. Hajin then suddenly ran out and told her that he would be back soon. He asked her to wait here. Nayeon was then shocked to see that. Hajin ran away in a hurry. He wondered, did the storyline change, or did someone else he didn't know intervene? He was really confused why this happened. Hajin was currently chasing two people who were now walking together. After getting close enough to them, he then immediately called them. Hajin was confused as to why Yun Sung-ah was in Paris. Yun Sung-ah was then confused and panicked when a man suddenly called out to her. Hajin then told her that she was walking quite fast. He asked her what she was doing in Paris. Hearing that, Yun Sung-ah asked who he was. Hajin asked, why did she pretend not to know him? But a notification suddenly sounded from his notebook. He knew this was a message from the co-author. He then apologized to them. It seemed he had the wrong person. After that, Hajin then immediately opened his notebook, and read the setting change notification he got. An unknown informant reignited the bad relationship between Jane and Yun Sung-ah. Yun Sung-ah has been included in this episode. Nayeon was confused when she saw Hajin standing silently outside the window. Hajin did not realize it because he was currently busy thinking about the setting changes that occurred. After reading the setting changes, Hajin then realized why Yun Sung-ah came to Paris. Jane and she both worked in the Guild Creators' Sacred Grace. After being recruited at the same time, they went through various missions and incidents together. Jane became the only person who was considered a friend by Yun Sung-ah after her dark life. But, at the decisive moment, Jane betrayed Yun Sung-ah. At that time, a fire broke out in the room they were in. In disbelief of what had just happened, Yun Sung-ah then asked her, why did she betray her? Hearing that, Jane replied, did she not know why? It was because she thought it would be fun. Yun Sung-ah's gaze went blank when she heard that. She did not expect to be betrayed by the only friend she had. Her identity is actually Jane Valerian, the yellow of the chameleon troupe. She is a villain with the talent of theft and disguise. Yun Sung-ah's purpose to Paris is probably for her. Yoren then ordered her coffee. Yun Sung-ah thanked him. Yoren then hesitantly said to her that she looked confused. Hearing that, Sung-ah asked, is that so? She said that she actually felt refreshed, because she could finally end this grudge. Hearing that, Yoren asked, was she sure Jane Valerian would show up at the party like the unknown report said? Sung-ah said that she didn't 100% believe in the report, but she knows Jane loves parties like this. She will feel very good when she manages to steal something there. The artifact stored in the ballroom safe, Homer's ring. Tonight, Jane Valerian will show her face to steal the artifact. after they came out of the restaurant where they ate, Nayun looked very satisfied. She was very full at the moment, but Hajin suddenly suggested at this time, why don't they split up now? He was sure she wanted to see other places. The party started at 5 p.m. Hajin thought that he should explore this area to find a good spot. Nayun didn't really care about it. She just agreed. Seeing her walking away, Hajin then called her and asked her not to get lost. Nayun then got annoyed hearing that. Did he think she was stupid? Time continued to roll, until finally night fell and the party started. The people who attended the party were people from the upper class. They were dressed luxuriously while using masks that covered their eyes. The drinks were stacked very neatly. The room where the party looked very beautiful and luxurious, but the people there then looked in one direction in awe. It was Suho and Yona. They were now dressed very elegantly. They wondered if they were celebrity. They felt they were very cool even though they were wearing masks. Yona smiled proudly at that. She then said to Suho, he knows the saying right, people judge a person by his cover. It's not in vain that she dresses him up. But Suho didn't seem to like this kind of clothes. The clothes felt tight to him. Yona then asked him, they had come this far, didn't he want to dance? Suho scratched the back of his head hearing that. He had never danced before. The activities at the party were now visible to Hajin's eyes. He himself was now on top of the building next to the building where the party was held. It was 5:30 p.m. Yun Sung-ah has also arrived. So far there is no noticeable change. The masked ball is held in an old castle on the outskirts of Paris. Her task today is to help the story run smoothly. But he was then surprised when he saw something when he used the 1,000 miles eye. It was a magic portal. Hajin could only curse at the sight of it. It was only fitting that everything went so smoothly. Only Jin could create such a portal artificially. And they had to be very favored by a demon in order to have enough magic power to open the portal. Somewhere in this party, there is a Jin who opened the portal, but his notebook at this time suddenly lit up. A point of criticism, Homer's ring mythic artifact. It is a mistake to assume that there are not many who are after a mythic item just because it has not been awakened. The setting has changed to a group of Jin, evil society, who participated in the Paris episode to target the artifact. Hearing the name of the group, Hajin realized. Evil society is a group of terrible Jin led by Kim Hakpyo, artifact theft, terrorist attacks, wars. The Jin of evil society have participated in countless crimes. Hajin then sarcastically thanked him for including such dangerous people. He was very annoyed with the co-author. He then turned the ether into a mask to cover his face. Hajin realized, this time, the situation would not go his way, and the question now was, where was Jane? Somewhere at the party. A man was seen who was silently killed by someone by strangulation. The man did not seem to be the first and only victim of this person. After killing them all, the person then went to the safe that was there. The person's eyes suddenly turned yellow. He used that to trick the security of the safe. Seeing the safe which was now open, the person chuckled. This seemed very easy for him. Seeing the object in the safe, the person muttered, so this, a mythic artifact, Homer's ring. It is an artifact that has been targeted by many parties, and the artifact is now right in front of him. He then immediately took the artifact. But someone suddenly called him from behind. It was Yun Sung-ah, and the person turned out to be Yoren. He then confusedly asked her, why is she here? Sung-ah said that she was looking for him. She couldn't let her secretary leave her guard post just like that. She then walked towards him, and suddenly hugged his body from behind. Yoren was then shocked and confused to see that. He then confusedly asked, what was she doing? But Sung-ah suddenly hugged his body very tightly and told him, he couldn't fool her a second time, and she then slammed Yoren to the floor. The slam was so strong that it shocked all the guests attending the party. Seeing that, they wondered what happened, if there was an explosion, after being hit. Yoren then immediately ran from there. His face now looked faded and changed. She was not Yoren but Jane who was disguised as him. Turning towards Sung-ah who was now chasing her, Jane then asked, how did she know? Her talent should be able to disguise her perfectly. Feeling angry, Sung-ah then attacked towards her, but her attack was blocked quite easily by Jane. Sung-ah then irritably asked. She switched places with Yoren after they arrived in Paris, right? Did she think she wouldn't notice the change in the way of walking and talking of the person who became her right hand? Hearing that, Jane just smirked. She didn't remember her being so meticulous before. She asked, was her betrayal that painful? The question hit right where it hurt in Sung-ah's heart, but before she could strike back, a whip suddenly wrapped around and held her hand. They then both turned towards the user of the whip. It was Yona. She then said to them, she didn't know who they were, but why don't you have your lovers quarrel at home? Hearing that, Sun-ah then asked who they were. Yona replied, they were hero cadets from the cube. She also told them, if they lowered their weapons now, then there would be no bloodshed. Sun-ah was a little annoyed with her intervention. She then released a little energy to release the entanglement of her whip. It allowed her to release the entanglement of her whip and even damage it a little. Yona was then shocked when she saw that she could release the entanglement of her whip so easily. Yona at this time did not seem to know who she really was, but Sun-ah was then shocked. When Jane suddenly attacked her when she was not fully prepared, but fortunately she managed to dodge her attack, Sun-ah then coated her weapon with mana power, and attacked her again. The clash of their attacks was really fierce. Yona was even overwhelmed by the shockwave created by the collision between their weapons, and as Sun-ah continued to attack Jane relentlessly, she then finally managed to repel her. Disbelief could be seen clearly in Jane's eyes, as she saw her sword that was about to break after repeatedly clashing with her. And as she could only helplessly lie on the ground and watch Sun-ah's sword attacking towards her, the sword was suddenly held by someone before it could even hit her. That person was Suho. Sun-ah was then surprised to see that. Jane then sighed in relief after her life was saved. She broke out in a cold sweat because she really almost reached her death earlier. Sun-ah then asked Suho who he was. She told him to leave immediately before she cut them both off, but Suho said no, he didn't know why they were fighting, but he wouldn't let anyone get caught up in their fight. He suggested, it would be better if she stopped right now. Sun-ah was then very upset to hear that. She decided not to hold back anymore. Feeling angry, she then attacked Suho with all her might, but while she was busy dealing with Suho, Jane did not waste this opportunity and immediately ran away from there. Seeing that, Sun-ah then immediately chased her. She told her to stop. Hearing that, Jane then ridiculously said, would she stop if she were her? She then said goodbye to her former best friend, but she was then surprised and confused when she saw a dark aura appear from behind her. Sun-ah was a little overwhelmed by the appearance of the dark aura. A creature then emerged from the dark aura which then immediately took Homer's ring from her. They could only be shocked and confused when they saw that creature. They didn't understand what it was. The creature was shaped like a female human with legs filled with tentacles like an octopus. She looked happy when she finally managed to get Homer's ring. The scene was fully seen by Hajin. He could only chuckle at it. At the restaurant where Hajin and Nayun ate earlier, Nayun was seen feeling frustrated. She seemed to be lost. She kept coming back this way. She was also confused at this time. She was sure that she had followed the map, but why did she come back here? She blamed her smartwatch for failing to show her directions. She even went as far as blaming the company that made it and decided to find out what kind of bad company created something like this. But when she found out that the watch was actually made by her father's company, Nayun could only remain silent. She had also tried to contact Yona, but she did not answer her calls or read the messages she sent. She was confused about what exactly she was doing. Yona did not read or answer her calls of course because she did not even have time to open her smartwatch at this time. Seeing the creature in front of her, Sun-ah then realized that it was a jinn. Realizing that, Sun-ah then pointed her sword at the jinn, and told her to drop the Homer's ring right now. Hearing that, the jinn then stared at her and said, this is not an item that can be owned by people like her. They, the evil society, will take this ring. Hajin was still observing the scene using 1,000 Miles eyes. Now that the evil society had the ring, there was a very low chance that they could get it back even if everyone cooperated. Since there was no other choice, Hajin then decided to execute the plan B. He then tied the ether to his arm. He shaped the liquid like some kind of rope. After measuring for a moment, Hajin felt that this distance should be enough. He then threw the ether towards the jinn. Hajin's goal was to snatch Homer's ring from the jinn's hand remotely using the ether. The jinn was really surprised and confused by what it was. She wondered who did it. Hajin's action seemed so clean that it was not even detected by them. But while the jinn was busy worrying about it, Sun-ah suddenly attacked towards her. Hajin was happy to see his plan succeed. He also thanked the jinn. Because of her, they would not chase him because they were busy dealing with her. If he just left with this ring now. But that thought was immediately dispelled when he saw someone attacking towards him. The person's attack was powerful enough to destroy the floor there. While walking towards him, the person said that he could not do that. he also asked, where did he want to take the ring? Ha-jin could only curse when he saw that person. He did not expect that there was a second jinn. The jinn then greeted him and introduced himself. His name was Sidious. He wondered if it would be easier to explain if he said he was a member of the evil society. He also praised his action earlier. His ring-stealing technique was flawless. Shillasen could not prevent it. That seemed to be the name of the jinn faced by Sung-ah and others. Hearing his praise, Ha-jin then humbly said that it was nothing. Sidious continued, because he was quite cunning. He was sure he knew what he was going to say. He then told him to hand over the ring. Hearing that, Ha-jin said that he couldn't do it. Sidious was then annoyed to hear that. He hated it when this happened. People interfered when everything was almost done. What else could it be? He then prepared his attack. He only needed to take it by force. After reactivating his lightsaber, with a slashing motion, he then attacked towards him. Ha-jin was quite surprised when he saw the attack that was directed at him. The attack was really strong to cause such a powerful effect. But fortunately the attack did not succeed in hitting him. He might be dying or maybe even die if he was hit by the attack. Seeing that, Sidious then asked him, what was it that made his hair stand up? He explained, this is a special weapon that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars per unit, the mana sword. As long as the wearer has sufficient magic power, this sword can be stronger than a low-tier relic. After saying that, he then again told him to hand over the ring before he had to hurt him. Hearing that, Ha-jin then thought, one of the benefits that the jinn received from their contract was the development of explosive magic power. The synergy between the characteristics that the jinn had and the sword was obviously very suitable. If only he could do something about the sword. Not giving him time to think further, Sidious then attacked him again. Seeing that, Ha-jin then quickly moved to dodge. He was completely overwhelmed in the face of his attack. He then asked Sidious to discuss this first. He could give up the ring if he agreed to talk. Hearing that, Sidious asked him, why did he have to do it? He could kill him and take the ring. Ha-jin asked, didn't he want to negotiate just now? Sidious was really annoyed with his pleasantries. He told him that he couldn't beat him by stalling. Obviously, he was much weaker than those fighting in there. His only weapon was a pistol, and he could barely dodge his attacks with his physical abilities. What made him think he could fight a jinn? He was tired of playing with him. He then reactivated his lightsaber. In a slashing motion, he then said goodbye to him. But, nothing happened when he swung the lightsaber. They were then surprised to see that. Sidious was really confused about it. He didn't understand why the lightsaber suddenly didn't work. Seeing that, Ha-jin was silent for a moment. He then knew the reason behind it. He then said to Sidious, that sword would no longer function for today. Sidious was then shocked and confused to hear that. Ha-jin said that he was a very lucky person. The reason behind that was because his extreme luck was active. It weakened the mana sword, but Sidious just thought he was bluffing. Sometimes weapons can also malfunction. Even without it, he was confident that he could kill him in an instant. Hearing that, Ha-jin said that he was curious if it was true. He then changed the remaining stigma into light magic power. He applied it to the bullets in the gun. He also changed the gun into shotgun mode. Knowing Ha-jin was planning something, Sidious then immediately moved to attack him. But, when the distance between him and Ha-jin was so close, Ha-jin then fired his shotgun. The ending was predictable when he was hit by a shotgun bullet blessed by light magic power at such a close distance. While other cadets were busy facing the enemy, Nayeon herself was now playing video games to pass the time. She stopped looking for the location of the party after getting lost without direction. She also noticed the police who were noisy from earlier. She wondered where they would go. She had contacted her friends who came to the party, but none of them gave an answer. It made her depressed, but she then confusedly wondered why she was even disappointed. She had been influenced in a strange way, but she was then surprised and confused when she saw Ha-jin, who suddenly sat next to her. After realizing from her shock, Nayeon then immediately asked, why is he here? Ha-jin's condition does not seem to be okay at the moment. He said that he was a little tired. Nayeon was then confused to hear that. She didn't understand what he was saying, but she was shocked when she saw Ha-jin fall unconscious just like that. She then immediately asked him, what was wrong with him? Was he sick? But Ha-jin never answered or woke up when she kept calling him. Ha-jin himself was now dreaming. Seeing the scene in front of him, Ha-jin wondered where he was at this time, but he then immediately remembered. He had just messed up his CSAT. It was a kind of university entrance test. In the middle of his musings, someone suddenly called him from behind. Hearing that, Hajin then immediately looked back. There, he then saw his parents. He asked, why did they both come here? The weather today is very cold, but his parents were surprised when they saw their son suddenly shed tears. Hajin could not stem his tears, feeling guilty. He then told his parents that he had messed up his exam. Seeing Hajin crying, they then immediately comforted him. They said that it was okay, and when Hajin woke up from his long sleep while shedding tears, he then confusedly wondered, where am I? When Soho, Nayun and Natasha came to visit him, they were then surprised to see him awake. Nayun then annoyedly said to him, did he know what difficulties it was for her to bring him here? She told him to pay attention to his body condition. Nayun also laughed at him when she saw him crying. She asked, was he that sick? Hajin was a little embarrassed to hear her teasing. Soho sighed for a moment seeing the interaction between the two of them. He then asked Nayun to wait outside. Nayun was then confused to hear that. Did she say the wrong thing? Different from Nayun, Natasha brought him a drink and fruit. She asked, is he feeling better? Hajin answered yes. Natasha said that he was a little tired. She asked him not to push himself and rest well. Hajin understood. By the way, he then asked, where is he right now? Natasha said that they were at the mansion. This was the room given to him and Kim Soho. Hearing that, Hajin realized that they were already at their accommodation, which is the mansion. It was past 10 now. Natasha then asked him, did he want to eat something? Hajin replied no, he didn't need it. Hajin realized that the assassination episode was about to start. He was happy because he woke up before the incident started. After making sure his condition was fine, Natasha then said goodbye and asked him to rest well. She would go together with Miss Nayun now. Nayun was surprised to hear that. She then irritably asked, why do they always tease her? Natasha said that it was late at night, that was the reason. Soho then waved goodbye. When it was just the two of them in the room, Soho then peeled the apple skin for him. He asked, is he really okay? Is he sure he can move? Hajin replied yes, he was really okay. Soho was relieved to hear that. After opening his smartwatch, Hajin then saw the article that reported the Jin attack incident at the party last night. After reading the article, Hajin was relieved to know that no one was seriously injured or killed, seeing that they did not state anything other than this. It seems Jane managed to escape safely. Hajin then asked Soho about the incident. Soho said that he couldn't tell him the specifics, but nothing bad happened. The Jin escaped before the assigned heroes arrived. He then asked Hajin to eat the apple he peeled. Hajin thanked him, but Hajin was then surprised when he saw Soho's hand that was currently peeling the apple skin. His fingers appeared to be wrapped in bandages. Hajin then asked Soho to take good care of himself. Soho was then confused to hear him suddenly say that. Hajin said, he is the main protagonist, he cannot be injured. Today, he attacked Yun Sung-ah without the slightest fear. Sung-ah's killing aura is real, and if the Jin comes too late, he might suffer severe injuries. Of course, he understands his principle, because Soho is the only protagonist who steps on the path of righteousness. But, can a main protagonist who only wants to do good and act righteously, overcome this difficult situation that is being distorted by an unknown being? And also, can he really send him home? Soho just felt Hajin was digressing. Where is there such a thing in this world? If I am the main protagonist, then you are also the main protagonist. No, rather, the whole world is the main protagonist in their own lives. His words really surprised Hajin. He then seemed to realize something. Soho then called him and said, the report he wrote about Chai Nayun, he has seen it. He felt it was a little harsh. Hearing that, Hajin said, he didn't mean to make it harsh, it's just that Nayun is not a natural archer. Hearing that, Soho asked, was that the reason why he made the bet with Nayun? Hajin confirmed that, and if he won, she would have to stop using the bow, but Soho didn't seem to agree with that. It was the path that Nayun had chosen. He didn't think it was good to encourage others to give up. Hearing that, Hajin then asked him, did he want him to encourage her to the end even though it was a dead end? Just saying nice things like he did, doesn't mean it's a good way in every situation. What if she worked hard until the end but all that awaited her was failure and disappointment? Would he be responsible then? Soho was silent for a moment hearing that. He then asked him, then how can he be sure that Nayun's talent is not an archer? Can he be held responsible for his words? Hajin said that he thought about this seriously. More than him, and he had been watching Chai Nayun for a long time, so he knew more about her than him. Soho was then surprised to hear that, but without having time to ask about it, they were then surprised by the sound coming from the direction of the door. Seeing that, Hajin could only sigh helplessly. he then activated one of the skills he had as a sharpshooter, hidden. He really felt helpless for using a skill like that for something trivial like this, but it made him know the origin of the voice. Na-yun was seen running with embarrassment from the direction of his room. She immediately ran to her own room. She really felt embarrassed when she heard Hajin's words earlier. She seemed to have been eavesdropping on the conversation between the two of them. Yona then woke up when she saw her enter. She asked, "What happened? Why was she so noisy?" Na-yun didn't know how to answer her. She then just said that it was nothing. Hearing that, Yona then told her to go to bed immediately if it wasn't important. She was very tired now. Na-yun said yes. She then said good night to her, but Na-yun really couldn't sleep at the moment. She then told herself to calm down, and tried to ignore what she had heard earlier, but Hajin's words kept coming to her mind. As she tried to forget it, Na-yun blushed when she remembered it. She wondered what was in his head until he said that, but then she suddenly heard a scream. She was then surprised and confused to hear it, and Yona, who thought the shout came from her, then scolded her. She had told her to be quiet, hearing her misunderstanding. Na-yun then immediately said that this time it wasn't her. Yona immediately calmed down when she heard that. She then asked, "Then what was that?" Na-yun then pointed in a direction. In the direction that Na-yun pointed, Yona then saw a scene that shocked her very much. In Bethel's room, a maid was very surprised when she saw his current condition. She also seemed to be the one who shouted earlier. On his bed, there was a dead Bethel with a body covered in blood. It wasn't just them who were startled by the sound of the scream. The other cadets were too. They then came out of their rooms feeling confused. They felt the origin of the sound was from downstairs, and while the cadets were still feeling confused about what to do, they were then surprised when they saw Suho, who immediately acted and moved towards the origin of the sound. They then worriedly called out to him when they saw him just jump from there. Hajin was just as surprised as they were. He wondered if he was a monster or something. This was the third floor. Ignoring their surprise, Suho moved quickly towards the source of the sound, which was in Bethel's room. And when he finally arrived and opened the door to the room, he was shocked by what he saw. Seeing someone entering, the maid then immediately called for help. The Lord had been killed. Seeing Bethel's condition with blood flooding his body, Natasha also looked incredulous when she saw it. After examining Bethel's condition, she then said, "There seems to be heavy bleeding coming from a stab wound in his abdomen." Unfortunately he had, although she did not finish her words, but they knew what she meant. The maid sobbed when she heard the news. The butler then said that he was sure that this was the work of people who held a grudge against him. How could someone do this to him, who had dedicated his life to helping others? The cadets could not hold back their sadness at this time. The room was silent for a moment amidst the maid's sobs. Natasha then asked them all to wait outside while waiting for the arrival of the police and ambulance. She asked all the cadets to return to their respective rooms, but a cadet suddenly turned on the light switch that was there. It immediately lit up the whole room that had been dark. The cadet was Hajin. Natasha was then surprised to see it. She then confusedly asked, "Why did he turn on the lights?" Their gazes all then immediately focused on Hajin. But Natasha was then surprised when Hajin suddenly approached Bethel's body and touched him. She immediately told him not to carelessly touch the scene of the crime. She then told him to stay away before, but she was then surprised when Hajin suddenly pointed his gun right in her face. The cadets who saw it were also shocked, and they saw it. Na-yun then asked, "Is he crazy?" Ignoring their shock, Hajin then said to Natasha, "She is lying right now. Bethel is not dead yet. Bethel the villain is not dead." After he deceived everyone to escape from the crisis he experienced, he became the greatest strategist when he joined the Jinn. Because the role of the villain is improvised, Hajin does not know what will happen in the future, so he thought it would be better if he finished him off now. Seeing the looks of horror and disbelief on their faces, Hajin knew it would be hard to convince the others. With his interference, he didn't know what uncertain events would happen and mess up the storyline. But he then recalled what Suho had told him. Hajin smiled as he recalled that. Even so, Hajin knew, without even thinking, one idiot man would be able to deal with that uncertainty. He then said that Bethel was not dead. He deceived everyone by pretending to be dead. Hearing that, Natasha pretended not to understand and asked, what was he talking about? She was a doctor and she had confirmed his death. Hajin explained, first of all, the wound was too shallow for someone who was stabbed from above. Next was this too intense bleeding. The only fatal wound he received was his heart, but the blood not only soaked the mattress, but it puddled on the floor like this, and the most important thing was, Hajin then opened his smartwatch and showed a hologram of someone to them. They were shocked when they saw it. It was a hologram of the con artist Berbet who was on the global wanted list. He looked very similar to Mr. Bethel, right? Natasha really didn't know what to answer now. She then asked the butler. He already called the police and ambulance, right? The butler was a little surprised at her question. He then answered yes. Natasha smiled at that. She then said, in that case, they can ask the police about this instead of arguing like this, because professional opinions can be trusted more than cadet opinions. After saying that, Natasha then said to them, let's end this business until the police arrive. But, Hajin suddenly reloaded his gun. Natasha was then surprised to hear that. She then immediately turned to him, and asked what he was doing. Hajin then placed the gun on Bethel's head. The cadets were confused and surprised to see that. They asked, what is he doing? Hajin didn't answer and said, he will shot his head after the count of 3. It doesn't matter since he's dead, right? And Hajin then started to count. Natasha was horrified to see that. She then asked them to please stop him. He was already a corpse. What was the need to overdo it? When it came to the second count, Natasha then anxiously said, they had already called the police. What more did he want? She told him to put down his gun right now, but Hajin of course ignored that, and when it came to the count of 3, Natasha then became very panicked. She then immediately ran, and shielded Bethel's body from his shots. She frantically asked him not to shoot. He was her father. She begged him not to shoot him. They were then shocked to hear this fact. Han Hyun, as Natasha's boyfriend, was the same. Natasha never seemed to tell him about it from the beginning. The maid and the butler were equally shocked, but the butler was then surprised when Hajin suddenly shot at him, but fortunately Hajin deliberately missed his shot, with the position of the gun aiming at him. Hajin then told him not to call the police, but just call the hero, telling them that they had caught a wanted criminal. When morning came, the police and the ambulance finally arrived at the mansion. The police immediately arrested Natasha and Berbet after receiving their report. This murder incident was an artificial scenario that had been prepared by Berbet and Natasha. Berbet, who was wanted throughout Europe for his criminality, the fact that the fool his daughter, Natasha, happened to bring along was a cube cadet had contributed positively to the plan. The plan was known as coming back from suspended animation, although the materials needed to put someone into suspended animation are very expensive. Natasha, who was a doctor in Cube, was able to obtain them easily. The next step was quite simple. After creating a fake wound on Berbet, who had been made to go into suspended animation with the help of an illegal mage, she only needed to spill blood around the area. The medical personnel in the newly arrived ambulance would have no way of knowing that it was a fake death. And all the police officers around Paris have been bribed by Berbet, and also, a similar corpse has been prepared to swap places with him when he is moved. After that, the fooled Cube cadets will then give their testimonies, and the words of the Cube cadets will be 100% reliable. That way, Berbet would be officially considered dead on paper, but in actual fact, he would be reborn with a new name. However, that scenario would not happen again, because Hajin had successfully foiled their plan. While witnessing the arrest of Berbet and Natasha, Hajin then sent a message to the customer who hired his services at Violet Banquet. Berbet turned out to be a scammer who had scammed his customer's property. Hajin told him about Berbet's arrest. Hajin did not expect the first question asked by his customer to be about Berbet. He was happy, because thanks to this, his credibility rose. But Hajin was then surprised when he saw Yona, who suddenly appeared behind him. Yona asked, "Is he Sherlock Holmes?" It is the name of a famous fictional detective. In a complimentary tone, Yona said, "Previously there was the Yu-hyun incident. And today there is also another incident." According to her, he can already open a detective agency. Hearing that, Hajin just said, "After all, a sharpshooter needs to have a good eye." Even so, Yona was still confused. How could he know the face of the criminal? Hajin said that it was a family matter. Yona was confused why he suddenly spoke formally, but Hajin was suddenly pensive with the words he said earlier. After he thought about it, what about Kim Chuandong's family history? Somewhere, there was a mysterious man who was looking at a large aquarium in front of him. Shortly after that, Shillison then appeared. The place seemed to be the headquarters of the evil society. Shillison then respectfully reported to the man. An unknown man wearing a leopard mask blocked their way. He was good at stealing things, and even Sidious lost to him. The man was just silent while looking at her sharply when he heard that. He then asked, is he not like a jinn? Shilison replied yes, but he was also not like a hero. Hearing that, the man then ordered her to look for him among the heroes and hunters. If she found him, don't think about fighting him alone. Report it first. Shilison understood. He was silent for a moment, then irritably asked her, but why is she wandering around showing off that she is a jinn? Shilison was then confused by his sudden question. The man explained, her face. He asked her, why is she showing off that she is a jinn? He seemed to be very angry with her. Shilison then immediately apologized to him. She then immediately changed her appearance to human-like. Seeing that, the anger of the man then subsided. He told her to make sure she found him as soon as possible. By the way, has she taken back the magic sword? The weapon that Sidious used. Hearing that, Shilison then answered hesitantly. She was really in a difficult position at the moment, because the sword was now in the Hajin's hands. Hajin himself was currently confused. He was confused about how to use this. This was a useless weapon for him because he could not control ordinary magic apart from the stigma. Even so, he could sell this weapon. He felt that this would sell for a decent price, but it felt like something was wrong, but he decided to ignore it for the time being. He then checked the next item he got, Homer's ring. It was the ring that Homer's used in the past. The ability of this ring was still hidden. In fact, a certain amount of magic power needed to be put into it to modify it, but there was no need for him to do such a thing, because he just used some SP to change some words. Shortly after that, the appearance of Homer's ring then changed. The ability that was previously locked has now been unlocked. The ring can increase the user's intelligence by 0.001 every 24 hours, can increase up to 0.365. Advanced magic power is also increased. A ring that Homer's used in the past. This ring resonates with nature and provides clean energy to the user. In addition, the user will also receive a portion of Homer's intelligence, a relic that increases magic power and also increases intelligence permanently, and this is also not a binding item. So he can give this item to others in the future. Compared to someone like him, who doesn't have enough magic power, Kim Suho and Chai Nayun will be able to use this better. It will be even more effective for Nayun, who has more magic power. After reading the description of the item he just got, Hajin was curious how much his stats would increase, and Hajin then opened his status window. Other than speed and perception, the rest didn't increase so much. His magic power didn't increase either. But fortunately, there was an increase in the talent section. He was starting to feel like he had hit a wall. He still had to work even harder than before in order to exceed his limits, but still, Hajin felt he should be able to beat Nayun at this level. But, he then remembered something. He had to find out about Kim Chundong. There was no way the co-author would wipe the slate clean. Kim Chundong joined the cube. Even though he was an extra in his novel, he should be an elite in the real world. That meant there was a high chance that his parents were not ordinary people. With that thought, Hajin then opened his notebook. He felt that finding information about him would be a little difficult. Therefore, he would hire the services of troubleshooter Yu Jinhyuk. He was someone who was known to be the best at finding all kinds of information about people, but the cost of hiring him was very expensive. But since he was very good at finding people, he would hire him. But Hajin then just remembered, he has no more money because he has invested it all. He had completely forgotten about it. But he was then surprised when he saw a little movement from the evangel seed. It was moving. Hajin wondered, was it time to feed it? He then calmed the seed that looked a little restless. When the afternoon arrived, in a towering building, Yona was seen calling someone. The person she was calling turned out to be Yu Jinhyuk, the person Hajin wanted to hire to find information about himself. He turned out to be Yona's uncle. She looked pensive while waiting for Yu Jinhyuk to answer her call. In Norway, the weather there is very cold because it is snowing. You might be confused why they are suddenly in Norway. The story is long, maybe also short. When Hajin was pensive, a snowball suddenly hit him right in the face. The snowball turned out to be from Chai Nayun. She did that on purpose. Hajin was then annoyed by that. The club activities that were stopped after the Sven incident resumed. The hunting club borrowed a cabin on the mountain and organized an event to resume club activities. Seeing their excitement, the club president then asked them to stop playing around. She would explain the event. The seniors have hidden flags in certain places in this forest. There are prizes connected to each number on the flag. The prizes range from VR devices, vouchers, and other attractive prizes, so she asked them to do their best to find them. The cadets looked enthusiastic when they heard that. Everyone will come forward, take the draw, and find their team, and after Hajin took the draw, he turned out to be in the same group with Nayun. Nayun looked very upset about it. She even wondered if they rigged the draw. Hajin could only be silent hearing that. Nayun then annoyed told him not to be a burden to her. Hearing that, Hajin told her to take care of herself. He also reminded her, don't forget there is a boar trap below, but his warning seemed a little late, because Nayun turned out to step on the trap right after that. Hajin laughed out loud at that. As they walked together in order to find the flag, Nayun then asked him, doesn't he get cold wearing that thin coat? Does he want to freeze to death here? Hearing that, Hajin said that this is a multifunctional coat, a very extraordinary multifunctional coat. It can control temperature, has mid-level durability, has the speaker skill, can change shape between a jacket and a coat. It is a coat made by artists from the United Kingdom royal family. Some relics have been inserted. Rachel gave this as a gift when he had no money and couldn't buy it. She said it was a token of gratitude during the midterm or something. Hajin felt that she was very kind. He was also a little regretful. He should have made 100 characters like her. Nayun understood, but as they continued to walk forward, Nayun then saw a silhouette like the flag they had been looking for. The flag was stuck on a hill. She asked, isn't that the flag? Hajin confirmed it. The flag had the number 1. Nayun was very happy to hear that. But Hajin was confused. Why was the flag there? What kind of fool would climb up there? But he then could only be silent when he saw Nayun, who immediately climbed to take the flag. She also invited him to climb the hill. The fool had been with him, but instead of immediately climbing stupidly like Nayun did, Hajin then took out a knife and rope. Seeing that, Nayun then confusedly asked, did he think it could work just by using a knife linked to a rope like that? Hajin said, of course it won't work if it's just a normal rope. This is a rope that has some of his stigma's mana. After taking the stance, Hajin then vigorously threw the knife up the hill, no matter where it was going. If he controlled the mana in this knife, and when the knife was about to deviate from the position where the flag was standing, Hajin then controlled the mana in the knife, and made it hit exactly where the flag was located. That made the flag fall from where it was standing. Nayun was surprised to see that. She didn't expect it to work. They could now get the flag easily without spending much energy. When the flag fell to the ground, Hajin then immediately picked it up. Seeing that, Nayun then asked, what is the prize? She was very enthusiastic at this time. Hajin said, there is some kind of note here. Number 1, your prize is my phone number. Yun Sung-ah, you must know who I am, right? If you need help, just call. I will do my best to help you. Hajin could only be silent reading that. In contrast to his reaction, Nayun looked very happy, realizing that. Hajin then gave the note to her. Nayun was then surprised to see it. She didn't expect Hajin to give this to her. This is the phone number of the vice president of the best guild in Korea. Hajin just said that he didn't need it, because he already had it, but he certainly wouldn't tell Nayun about it. For some reason Nayun blushed when she received the note from him. She then returned the note to him and said, why should he give it to her if he got it? Hajin could only feel confused by her reaction, but he didn't think too much about it and took back the note. He then invited her to return to the cabin. Unlike in Norway, the weather in the cube was very sunny. Yona was seen thinking very hard. She then recalled her interaction with Hajin after the Bearbit incident. She asked him at that time how he recognized the criminal's face. But Hajin said that it was a family matter. Yona paused for a moment when remembering that the wanted criminal, Bearbit, is someone who has committed many crimes. Especially in the European region, such a character should not have made contact or met with Kim Hajin. It might be somewhat reasonable if that person remembers all the faces of criminals who are on the run, but the question is, why does he remember that? Only this is a reasonable hypothesis that she thinks of. No one knows who the main perpetrator of the terrible tragedy that befell Kim Hajin in the past. Therefore, he remembers all the faces of fugitive criminals in the world to find the culprit. When considering Kim Hajin is an orphan, this hypothesis makes even more sense. Maybe his parents didn't just die, but were murdered. Therefore, he remembers all the faces of criminals and hides his powers, so he can find the culprit, then kill the culprit without the culprit even knowing that he was there. But this is just a hypothesis, because she doesn't know what his real past is like. If Kim Hajin did have such a past and she managed to find out, this could be an opportunity. An opportunity that could benefit her position when she tried to recruit him into her guild. Later, Yona was silent for a moment. She then felt a bit fed up. She was lazy to contact that person. That was the reason why she contacted her uncle. In an apartment, the sound of the phone ringing continued to ring. He was a little annoyed why he didn't pick up the phone, really a useless secretary who could only eat a blind salary. After clearing his throat for a moment, he then picked up the phone and introduced himself. Objects, people, information, I will find whatever you want. This is Yu Jinhyuk's office, but he was then surprised when the caller called him uncle. He then realized that it was Yona. He was happy. Because it was rare for his nephew to contact him, Yona said. Actually she wanted to hire him to investigate someone. His name was Kim Hajin, 17 years old, cube cadet. She wanted to know everything about his past, and where he came from. Yona asked, with his ability to sense the past, he must be able to find it, right? Back to Norway, Hajin and Nayun returned to the cabin after getting flag number 1 and 4. The cadets were then surprised when they saw him get flag number 1. They were really jealous and a little sorry. They should have searched faster. Hearing that, Hajin thought. Even though he thought prize number 4 was better than prize number 1. Sung-ah will probably be upset when she finds out his thoughts. Prize number 4 itself is a VR device. After all the cadets returned to the cabin, the club president then invited them to eat meat together. Such cold weather is the most suitable for eating meat. When a cadet wanted to help, Hajin then told him to let him cook the meat and others. He could go rest. The cadet was surprised to hear that. He then replied okay. He was also murmured. He was very different from the rumors. The reason Hajin did that was because in his previous world, his aunt owned a Korean barbecue restaurant. He was sure his meat grilling skills were better than others. While Hajin was focusing on grilling the meat, he then heard the club president who asked the cadets, soon they will have the end-of-term exams, right? She asked them to be more vigilant. They can't trust anyone during their end-of-term exams. They can only feel confused hearing that. Is it that difficult? The club president explained. Not only is it difficult, even she has witnessed the breakup of friendships there, because it is directly related to the results of the exam, so everyone is very sensitive. And they also know about the repeat class, right? They are really dangerous, so she asked them to be wary of them. Hearing that, Hajin then thought, repeat class, as the name implies, it is a class for cadets whose scores are not qualified and cannot continue to the next level. There are about 200 cadets in each grade. Among them, about 20% of them have a contract with a demon or belong to a dangerous group. And the problem in this end-of-term exams stems from them. Now that the co-author has intervened, there is a possibility that the percentage has increased. That is the proof of how rotten the cube is right now. When they taste the meat, the club president then called Hajin and praised his grilled meat. She also told him to take a break and eat too. Hearing that, Hajin said that it was fine, he could eat this while grilling too, because he said so. The club president then didn't mind it. The cadets also felt that his grilled meat was really delicious. Hajin felt that they were being friendly just because he cooked the meat well. He was also curious. Was it really that good? When night fell, the club president then said, since everyone had a delicious dinner tonight and was now full, she invited them to rest in the mountain cabin instead of going out to hunt at night. They also obeyed the words of the club president. They were now seen chatting casually while sipping hot chocolate. I don't know what they were talking about. They then both pointed at Nayun. It made Nayun annoyed with Hajin. Hajin laughed at that. The aurora that night shone very beautifully under the moonlight that illuminated the night. Hajin seemed to be in a very good mood. It had been a long time since he laughed out loud like this. But he was then surprised when he got a notification from his notebook. It turned out to be from the Violet Banquet. There was a scammer known as Jerome Miller. He worked as an asset manager, but suddenly disappeared with the money. Can he know where he is? He has attached photos and other info about him. Seeing his name, which looks like a German name, Hajin is sure this must be a referral from a previous customer. He then opened the Book of Truth and asked for information related to Jerome Miller's current whereabouts. Jerome Miller has been wandering the streets since yesterday. After he disguised himself, he left the hotel, walked towards a government building, changed into another disguise, and walked towards the city center. Various information related to Jerome Miller's whereabouts immediately appeared in his head simultaneously when he asked it to the Book of Truth. It made his head very dizzy. Making money is good, but he didn't like what he felt after he used this ability. After getting the information, Hajin then immediately told his customer about it. Not long after that, his customer then transferred the payment to him. It was pretty fast. After finishing his work, Hajin then closed his notebook again and enjoyed the beautiful scenery in front of him. but when he was about to put 2 fingers in his mouth, he then realized that he had stopped smoking. He thought he used to spend at least 1 pack of cigarettes every day for 5 years. He really forgot about cigarettes after he arrived in this world. The scene was witnessed by Nayun. She then asked him, "Did he used to smoke?" Hajin asked, "Since when were you there? You scared me." Nayun said that she had been here since before. Hearing Hajin not denying it, Nayun then mocked him. It turned out that he had smoked before. "You were a real thugs." She asked, "He must have a tattoo too, right?" Seeing Hajin who did not respond, Nayun then asked again, "So did he really have a tattoo?" Hajin then irritably said that he didn't have any tattoos. Nayun was silent for a moment hearing that. She then suddenly asked him, was he confident he could win against her? But Hajin asked her back, was she sure she wanted to give up using a bow if she lost? Nayun didn't know what to answer when she heard that. She then just said that it sounded impossible if she lost, so she didn't really think about what would happen afterwards. Hearing that, Hajin then asked, would she cry if she lost? She almost cried today. Nayun then got upset hearing that. Anyway, Nayun then asked, did he know there was a news article about him in France today? Hajin could only feel confused hearing that. He seemed to have just found out. While showing the news article to him, Nayun said that Yona showed it to her. They said he was a Korean Sherlock who caught the notorious con artist. Reading that, Hajin couldn't believe they wrote all that. Nayun was the same. She couldn't believe they called Sherlock to a thug who always fought with her and smoked. Hajin didn't care about her ridicule anymore and told her to go to bed. While sticking out her tongue at him, Nayun said that she would go to bed without him telling her to. Hajin really couldn't understand her childish behavior, but when Nayun was about to enter the cabin, she suddenly stopped her steps and asked him, but, what does smoking feel like? Hajin could only be silent at that. Somewhere in a certain year, the weather there looked very cold with snow covering the entire area. Jin-hyuk was also shivering from the cold at this time. His appearance now was like not an ordinary human. He was a little transparent like a ghost. He was confused. How long should he wait? He could hardly stand it anymore. A little longer and he would run out of mana. But his waiting seemed to pay off. When he saw someone heading to a building that looked like an orphanage there, the person looked like a child. The person was also seen holding a baby in his arms. He then put the baby in front of the orphanage. The scene was witnessed clearly by Jin-hyuk, but he then could only curse, while watching the world around him fade. His past was too dense. He was really confused and shocked at this time. Who he really was. Jin-hyuk then headed to a room. The room looked full of letters inserted in the door hole. Hearing the sound of his footsteps, the person in the room then realized his existence. He was the secretary. He then greeted his boss. Jin-hyuk also greeted him. He asked, how was their target this time? Jin-hyuk said that he was a little abnormal, but before they continued, he wanted to go to the toilet first. His secretary could only be silent seeing that. After arriving at the toilet, Jin-hyuk then recalled what he saw at that time. 17 years old, had lived in an orphanage. He returned to the day when the target entered the orphanage, but he could not see the target's parents. What he found was a child who put the baby down and left. The secretary was then surprised to hear that. Jin-hyuk continued, the information he found was not much and the past was covered by a very thick fog. It seemed that if he wanted to know more, he needed to maintain his best performance. The point is, this case will take time. Too much for a free job, even though this is his nephew's request. Hearing that, while covering his nose, the secretary said that he thought he should still do it. Jin-hyuk was then confused to hear that. The secretary continued, another request to find information about Kim Hajin's past just arrived. Jin-hyuk was then surprised to hear that. The secretary said, and worse, this time the request came from a top-rank Violet Banquet Red Diamond rank purchaser. Jin-hyuk was really surprised to hear that. It was the same rank as him. As he read the request paper, he then felt somewhat interested. Apart from being a Red Diamond rank, the message was written very politely. And the deposit amount was really abnormal. If the target found out or any problems arose, then this contract would be cancelled. Reading that, Jin-hyuk then realized, he was sure this was a request from the Chameleon's troop. It also made Jin-hyuk realize, maybe there was something special about Kim Hajin's figure. Time continued to roll, until finally arriving on Friday. Kim Soo-hyuk then announced, the end-of-term exams would be held in 4 weeks. The practical exam for the end-of-term exams will be much more difficult than the midterm exam yesterday. They will be tested on what they have learned as a hero this semester, so he asked them to prepare carefully. Hearing that, Hajin thought, unlike the midterm exam which is filled with entertainment, the end-of-term exams does not provide an arena or audience. The end-of-term exams will be held on a remote island in Korea. The survival test will be held on an island filled with monsters and wild animals. But if the co-author interferes, then there will definitely be many changes that can occur there. Just thinking about it makes him dizzy. And also, there are many other variables besides the co-author. He needs to be on guard. Kim Soo-hyuk continued, he can't tell the details of the exam yet, but in this exam, the middle and high-rank instructors will make sure that the exam location is safe. They just need to focus on the exam. After explaining all that, he then invited them to leave now. He also wished them a good weekend, and when Hajin was cleaning up and about to return to the dormitory, someone suddenly called him from behind. That person was Nayun. She asked, he hasn't forgotten their bet, right? Hearing that, Hajin asked her back. She didn't forget that if she lost, then she couldn't use the bow anymore, right? Nayun then got upset hearing that. She told him not to cry if he lost later. Hajin just smiled casually at that, and they then both walked to the archery center in the cube. When they arrived there, they then both took archery equipment. Nayun then asked, was he ready? Hajin answered yes, but he was confused. Why were they here? Their match was attended by the main characters. Yonghan then came up to the two of them and asked, were they going to do something fun alone? They needed an audience for something like this to be exciting. Hajin could only be silent to see his behavior. He wondered, was he not ashamed of the previous incident? Seeing Hajin's flat expression, Yonghan then with a bright smile asked, he was not angry, right? He invited him to reconcile, but Hajin was then surprised when someone suddenly grabbed his hair. That person is Shin Jong-hak. Jong-hak looks very angry at him right now. He asked Nayun to give up using the bow if she lost, right? What if he lost? Would he leave the cube? Nayun was really annoyed at the behavior of all of them. She then chased them away and told them not to interfere. They would start. She then explained, the goal is to hit the target. He saw that target launcher, right? The target will fly from that device. They will start from a distance of 100 meters. Every time they succeed, then they will add a distance of 50 meters and continue to shoot. That's all the rules. Nayun then mockingly asked him, is he scared because this looks difficult to do? Hearing that, Hajin casually replied no, this is because he feels this is much easier than he expected. Nayun can only feel annoyed at his arrogant remarks. Let's see how long he can be confident like that. After that, they then started the match. When the target launcher was active, they then both aimed at the target in the air, and shot. It was very easy for Nayun on the first shot. She also smiled proudly to see her arrow hit the center point of the target to destroy it. She then looked at Hajin to see the result, but Hajin apparently hadn't shot his arrow at all. He apologized. He didn't shoot because he was quite shocked. He asked to give him a chance. Nayun really couldn't think of hearing that. The audience was the same. Yonghan then couldn't help but laugh. He laughed out loud watching that funny incident, while Jong-hak himself was very upset at his carelessness. Nayun could only be silent. She sighed helplessly when looking at Hajin. Even his posture was also messed up. No matter how much he shot, it would be the same. Yonghan still couldn't stop laughing. Seeing that, Suho then told him to stop laughing. Hajin seemed to decide to be serious this time. Although Chai Nayun's posture was perfect, that kind of thing didn't matter to him. One wouldn't become an expert just by mastering posture alone. It was just one of the basic requirements. In this world, the power known as talent determines what is great and what is not. After taking a stance, Hajin then shot the arrow. All the theories to become a great archer were completely meaningless to him. Because his talent was master sharpshooter, it was the most suitable talent for the sharpshooter profession. It made her able to aim at any difficult target with ease. They were then surprised when they saw that. Hajin then said that if he understood how it worked, he would shoot again.